Good morning, everybody. Corey Hughes, Bloody History. So today's Tuesday, August 26th, end of the month. And we're going to continue on with the death of Martin Schrand. So as I said in the first episode of this, Martin Schrand and his brother were murdered. They were murdered by the intelligence community. They were not murdered by Oswald. Although Oswald's name was mentioned as having been a suspect in the death of Martin Schrand. If you haven't watched the first episode, I explain the backstory. So I advise you go watch that because I'm not going to redo it. But we're on to Daniel Patrick Powers, who was one of the 5 guys assigned to Oswald. He was in charge of the 6-man group that, excuse me, that went from Jacksonville to Biloxi. And so he's an important guy. His testimony is weird. The documents surrounding his testimony is weird. I don't know what to say much else about him. He was definitely killed in 1967 in California, where he's buried. I don't have any information on him and his death other than from what came from John Armstrong. John Armstrong did the research on him. I know the cemetery he's buried at, but I might actually have to freaking go there to verify that he's actually buried there. John Armstrong's document says that he found out that Powers killed himself in 1967, shot himself with his right hand, but the gun was found in his left hand. Right? That's a calling card. I have to do some research into the other guys in his group. Brereton, Bardoni, those guys. I feel they're important. I can't really say why yet, but something about them. I think 2 of them are killed. I think 2 of them disappeared off the face of the earth. Martin Schrand got killed, and Oswald, we all know what happened to Oswald. So this group of 6 guys, vanished off the face of the earth, pretty much. So I definitely need to do some research into that. And I'm so glad that I put out my first volume of the Oswald series when I did, because I have a pretty solid understanding of Oswald in the Marines from October 24th, 56 to September 11th, 59. Right? So it's 3 years, give or take. I have a pretty solid grasp on what was going on there. But I've come across not new documents. Obviously, they're not new. They're old. But in preparing to continue on with Volume 2, I just started to go back through Armstrong's Marine files. And there's a couple things I need to do before I can really go full on into this book. I need to take the places Oswald was. Meaning, first he was in San Diego, and then he was at Camp Pendleton, and then he was at Jacksonville, and then he was at Biloxi, and then he was on a break, and then he went to El Toro, and then he got on the boat, the Bexar, to go to Atsugi, and then he does a bunch of military drills in the Pacific, and he goes to Corregidor and Subic Bay in the Philippines, and he goes to Taiwan. And so in each one of these places, he interacted with people. So for me, a lot of Kennedy research is, I don't know what word to use, kind of compartmentalized, right? And so Oswald's being in certain places, for me, makes it very simple. You just compartmentalize each place that he was, and then you have a bunch of little boxes, right? Like a blockchain, sort of, right? You have all this information, and it's stacked into one little block. And that's kind of how I look at all of Kennedy research. You can kind of quantify everything and then qualify everything after it's quantified. So I don't see this as being any different. But I have a really solid understanding of each of the individual blocks of time that he spent in the Marines. And so what I really need to do is list and compile all of the statements from all of the guys in all of the different places that we know Oswald was. One thing you find when you go through the Marine records is that we have the official story. This is where he was at this time. This is where he was at this time. This is where he was at this time. And it forms a single chronology. The problem lies in the fact that you end up with guys coming forward saying, hey, I was with Oswald and we were on this boat over here, not what the official story says. That happens from the time he joins in October, November of 56, all the way till he gets out. I mean, it's the same exact story as his early life. The official story of where they're at, and then we have the contradictory story, and then the melding of the stories. The Marines, just in doing my initial preparation to write this book, it gets complicated. It does. It gets really complicated. And I kind of see like this book is gonna be pretty big. It's probably gonna be close to 400 pages. Mostly documents, just like in Volume 1. I think it's a great format for a book. Because people can read your words all day, and after a little bit, their eyes glaze over, right? There's so much data, you got to go back and reread stuff. And I tried to break from that in this Oswald series. The new book is actually only about 35,000 words, which is literally like about 2 chapters of my first book. But it's not me that's telling the tale. It's the documents. I'm just showing what they mean. And when I get through with this Volume 2, you're going to have less understanding of what the fuck's going on than before you read the book. Because that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So, it's going to be good. I figure, what is it? It's the end of August, so I got September, October, November, and December. I got 4 months. I can knock out a good portion of it, but it probably won't be out this year. What will be out this year is a Warning from History documentary that I am working on right now with a documentary filmmaker. And so that will be out this year, and the book will probably come next year. And that's how it's going to be. So, let's continue on with the death of Martin Schrand. We're talking about Powers. Investigation Minneapolis Division discloses Powers now lives 401 4th Avenue West, Menominee, Wisconsin. Telephone Cedar 2528. He is football and wrestling coach at Menominee High School. It was further ascertained Powers was in Minneapolis attending Minnesota-Wisconsin football game played at 10:30 a.m. November 28, and every effort made to contact Powers here so that interview could be conducted here without delay, but with negative results. Powers' parents at Farmington, Minnesota contacted, and they advised Powers expected to return to his home in Menominee after game, and they did not expect a visit from him while in Minneapolis. Powers was interviewed by St. Paul Dispatch November 25 last concerning his association with Oswald. Photostat of this news clipping being furnished Bureau, Dallas, and Milwaukee this date. AMSD. I don't know what that means. I should look into that. Milwaukee contact Powers at Menominee, conduct interview as set forth in quoted San Fran teletype. Daniel Patrick Powers, Marine serial number 1497089. And who resides at 401 12th Avenue, West Menominee, Wisconsin, advised that he entered the reserves in the Marine Corps on December 18, 1954, served on active duty in the Marine Corps from November 1st, 56 to October 31st, 58. Powers advised as follows. He first met Lee Harvey Oswald at the Midway Barracks in the Marine Aviation I can't read that. Naval Air Technical Center, Jacksonville, sometime in June 56. Okay, so that date is wrong. That date had to have been April. It had to have been late April because they were in Biloxi by May 3rd. So it was late April. It wasn't June. Or was it? You see, again, this is the kind of stuff we've been running into for how long now? Like for fucking ever. So that date should be late April 56, not June. It was in June 56 that Powers, as senior Marine, was assigned the following individuals, including himself, on transfer from Jacksonville to Biloxi, Mississippi. Edward J. Bandoni, number 1551427, residence believed Boston. James M. Brereton, Marine serial number 1644586, residence believed Brooklyn. Donald P. Camarata. Okay, let me stop right here. Something shady's going on. Donald P. Camarata, and let me read his number that they have, 1653230. But that's wrong. That's not his number. That's Oswald's number. Okay? So, let me continue. Donald P. Camarata, number 1653230, residence believed Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Martin Schrand, it says Shroud, Shroud, another one of those convenient mistakes, right? Martin Schrand, number 1639694, residence unknown. Lee Harvey Oswald, number 1653230, residence believed Texas. He informed that this group remained in Biloxi, Mississippi till about June 4th. That's wrong. They didn't graduate until June the 18th, and they didn't leave there until the 19th of June. While at Biloxi, Oswald remained the loner. He never went out on liberty with the rest of the group. Liberty is like when you get leave and you can go off the base. With the rest of the group, and it was believed, however, that he spent some time on leave at home in New Orleans just prior to the time that this group left Biloxi en route to El Toro. So what happens is they get out of Biloxi June 18th. They are cleared. This is where things get interesting, and I look at the records and I scratch my head because there's obviously some of the training these guys did was classified. This course that they took was classified. It's not actually on his record as such. I believe it's on his record as Casco HQ, which is Casual Company Headquarters. And so between June 19th, this is where it gets strange. Between June 19th and July 9th, or I guess technically July 8th, they have Oswald on his duty roster as having been at Casco HQ, Arlington, Virginia. Just throwing that out there. That's Marine headquarters. So on paper, it says he's on Casual Company at Marine headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. But he's not. He's technically on leave. So between this time, it is believed that he went to Fort Worth. There being no reason for him to go to New Orleans. Lillian Moret, who is a liar, said that he never visited while he was in the Marines. However, these fucking spooks. Marilyn Moret, she said that she did see Oswald, and it must have been either while he was on leave or before he went in, because he was in his fatigues and he had like a military bag with him. Who's lying? Probably both of them. Okay, so remember, if you're trying to squeeze truth from a liar, you need corroboration. Period. And most of the time, when you get truth from a liar, it's inadvertently. They let something slip that they're not supposed to let slip. Right? Like the Marguerite Oswald, like I called her or her brother statement from Lillian Moret, which is mind blowing. And I think I know exactly who she's talking about, which is another mind blowing story we'll talk about another time. So I don't remember what I was talking about. So I'm just going to continue on. He informed that this group remained in Biloxi, Mississippi till June 4th. I already said that was wrong. While at Biloxi, Oswald remained the loner. That's probably true. And remember, I believe that Oswald's withdrawn personality, and we're dealing with the real Oswald here, was because of the mastoidectomy that he had in 46, which left him, I would think, more than 50% deaf in that year, which is a miracle he got in the Marines. They probably had to flub his tests to get him in the first place. Never went out on liberty. He spent some time, and no, that's all bullshit. And then he was en route to El Toro, California. And I just explained that. Here's another thing about the El Toro thing that really is weird. His whole group with Brereton and Bandoni and Camarata and Schrand and Powers, all those guys were scheduled to get back to El Toro Marine Base on July the 12th of 1957. Oswald was scheduled to get there on July 9th. Isn't that fucking weird? At least the documentation we have for Oswald says he had to be back there July 9th. All right. What if that was Harvey's paperwork and they lost Lee's paperwork conveniently, which probably says the 12th with the rest of his group? That's probably what happened. They probably had conflicting paperwork with the dates July 9th and July 12th. And so they just scrubbed the other Oswalds. They scrubbed the real Oswald's July 12th arrival date, like the other 5 guys in his group. Can you explain that? Because I can't. I can't explain it at all. Why would Oswald need to arrive 3 days prior to the other guys in his group? It was from there they entered what they called the lottery or the draft. And it was from there that you got picked to go somewhere. I think 4 out of the 6 guys got sent on the same boat with Oswald to go to Atsugi. So, what that means, I need to clarify. On June 4th, 1957, the same group left Biloxi. No, that's not true. I just said it was June 18th or June 19th, actually. And leave was granted for this group, which had left Jacksonville. Yeah. Remember, just note here, they're saying it's a group. They keep calling it a group because it was. These guys were stuck together on purpose under Daniel Powers. It was not necessary for the group to report at El Toro till July 12th. Right, like I just said, July 12th. But Oswald was July 9th. Maybe they have it in this paperwork here. It was at this time that it was believed by Powers that Oswald took leave to spend time in New Orleans. There's no evidence of that at all. It's likely he went to Fort Worth. The group remained at El Toro, California till August 15th, 1957, when they went by ship, the name of which was unknown to Japan, arriving in Japan at either Yokohama or Yokosuka. This group then, which included Oswald, was transferred to the Marine Air Control Squadron Number 1 at Atsugi, Japan. While on ship en route to Japan, Oswald and Powers played chess. Powers got to know Oswald quite well, and that's why he got killed. Because he knew. See, these guys who knew Oswald here, who spoke out, like, they couldn't let these guys walk around. Because those guys knew the Lee Harvey Oswald on TV was not the guy they knew at all. He recalls Oswald read a lot on board ship, including such books as The Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman and another book entitled Age of Reasoning. He recalls further that Oswald stated on board ship that the Marine Corps teaches only to kill and that one could be a good gangster later on in life. On board ship, Oswald played cards occasionally, believed poker, gambling for small stakes, but Powers recalls Oswald was not particularly interested in this type of activity, preferring to remain alone and reading. After their arrival at Atsugi, Powers played football, while the rest of the squadron, including Oswald, went to the Philippines on maneuvers. In January 1958, Powers rejoined the squadron, which included Oswald at QB Point, in the Philippines. And according to Powers, it was here that Martin... Why do they keep saying Shroud? It's Schrand. Martin Schrand was shot while on guard duty. Powers stated that actually, from first-hand information, he knows nothing of this, but was advised from other individuals that there was some question concerning the shooting of Schrand. He recalls that Marines assigned guard duty utilized a pump shotgun and were given 3 slugs for the gun. The instructions were that the chamber of the gun was to be kept empty until necessary. He stated that it was his understanding that Marine Schrand was shot through the left side of the chest, the bullet piercing the body and coming out on the opposite side. See, here we go. Again, it's a reference to the bullet, but shotguns don't shoot a bullet, and there's no mention of it having been a slug. Not to mention, we're missing about 1,000 pages of investigative reporting, including a statement from Oswald in all this. He also recalled that the squadron's gear was kept in an airplane hangar, which housed the plane, the nature of which he did not know at the time, but which he now knows to be a U-2. He stated that he does not know whether Marine Schrand was assigned to the specific duty of guarding the hangar which housed the U-2, and he's not aware as to the circumstances surrounding Schrand's death, learning this only from hearsay the following day. I'm going to reread some of this. This just feels important. He also recalled that the squadron's gear was kept in an airplane hangar, which housed the plane, the nature of which he did not know at the time, but which he now knows to be a U-2. See, this is, again, he learned this after the fact, and I'm pretty confident that they weren't really dealing with the U-2 in the Philippines. And they most certainly, there's some conflicting information over the U-2 and its involvement in Atsugi at all. The more important thing about Atsugi and why the CIA was there, because that was the U.S.'s nuclear outpost in the Pacific. Right? If anything, if the shit hit the fan, they were the first people to get the nuclear radar, and they would be the ones to let Washington know that missiles are incoming. Right? That was what was super top secret out at Atsugi, not necessarily the U-2, which I've read conflicting reports again, but the most credible one I've read said that the U-2 only took off and landed from there once. So who knows? Powers recalled that Oswald and the squad were then put aboard a Philippine LST en route to Corregidor, where they remained for 2 or 3 months, during which time Oswald was on mess duty. See, once again, we have Oswald who goes to Atsugi, shoots himself in the damn arm, right? He's not in a radar unit the whole time he's in the hospital, which is about 6 weeks. He gets out, and a couple weeks later, they put him on a boat for the Philippines. And then here he's on mess duty the whole time because he got in trouble for shooting himself, right? This guy never worked in a radar unit. Never. Well, Joseph Gajewski, his sergeant in Atsugi, will say that he had Oswald at the plotting board, which is the clear board that the guy draws on with the marker, right? But like I posted on X this week, the course that he took at Biloxi was an electronics repair course. It was an evaluation and repair course. It was not a radar operator course. All right, so he recalled that Oswald, Powers, and the group in March of 58 returned via LST to QB Point in the Philippines. Powers remained at QB Point while Oswald continued on to Japan. I'm going to screenshot this because I gotta do some corroborating, because we have like 3 or 4 different accounts of when Oswald left where in the Far East. Powers remained at QB Point while Oswald continued on to Japan. In May 58, Powers left by plane from QB Point to Atsugi, where he rejoined the squad and again saw Oswald. It was at Atsugi that Oswald shot himself in the leg. All right, so, oh my God, I'm not even going to get too much into this other than to say we have 3 different reports of Oswald shooting himself. The most corroborated version of events is that Oswald accidentally, well, it was intentional. He admits this to somebody later on, but that Oswald accidentally shot himself above the elbow on the left arm. So like right here, right? That's where he shot himself. But then we have the statements of another guy, I think it was Robinson, who said that he had heard Oswald shot himself in the wrist, and he had subsequently seen Oswald with a bandaged wrist. I don't know what to tell you. And then we also have this here. Oswald shot himself in the leg. And the other place where we see Oswald shot himself in the leg is in the medical reports, where they x-rayed him and they said it looks like he's got some kind of something in the next to the femur, but it could be an artifact. Artifact meaning like something just on the x-ray, right? But yeah, so this just weirdness surrounding all of this again, as though we're at the very edge of the matrix and it's breaking down again. Let me see. Rumor to the effect that something, I can't read that, get out of the Marine Service. Oh, he thought he could get out of the Marine Service by wounding himself. That was the rumor, was that he shot himself to get out of the Marines. And also something that by rumor, it was reported that, it's so funny how when you get to the good stuff, that it just happens to be faded out. Reported that something partial hearing. Oh, for mailing Okay, so I know what they're talking about here. They're talking about Oswald allegedly shot himself with like a Derringer 22, one of them little two-shot little fucking, girly pistols. And allegedly he had it mailed to him. I don't know how you're going to get a fucking gun in the mail through a Marine base. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I have a feeling it was supplied to him by somebody who coached him into doing this to get out of going on the boat they were going to send him on, because the other Oswald was going to be on that boat and he got sent on a boat 6 weeks later. Right. That's my theory. So that's what they're talking about here. He informed the something time he saw in May of 58 when Oswald was something to the United States. May of 58. When Oswald was... I'm going to screenshot this. I have this screenshotted already, but I'm going to do it again. He informed them something. The next time he saw Oswald was in May 1958 when Oswald was returned to the United States. So he's saying here that Oswald was returned in May of 58 when we know that's not correct. He was actually returned in November of 58. And he arrived back in San Francisco on December 22nd, made it back to the base a couple days later, goes on leave for 2 weeks. Then he checks back in at Santa Ana, the Leiden Air Base, the third week of January. And then you got some weird shit between January. We're not going to get into that, but between January and the end of March, 59 is weirdness off the charts. So let me continue. Powers states that he believes that he had a Japanese girlfriend while at Atsugi, possibly a Japanese prostitute. He stated that he recalls that liberty was given to the group from 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. at night, and that the group was also given liberty 2 out of every 3 weekends. He stated he cannot recall that Oswald spent his time in the barracks while on duty, but he is of the opinion that Oswald took all the liberty he could get. Interesting. See, I think Powers would be one of the more credible people because they fucking killed the guy, right? So this was kind of expounded upon in Edward Epstein's Legend. I read that, and he has these statements here, and he doesn't use these statements from Powers, but these statements from Powers kind of echo the sentiment. God, who was it? Maybe it was Owen Dejanovic. I think it might have been Owen Dejanovic that he talked to, and he talked to a couple other people. But the weird thing is that Epstein alluded to the fact that Oswald was perhaps a Soviet spy all the way back in the day, and that he was seen with a tall Russian woman, a white woman. But it's all unsubstantiated, really, and it's hard to fit into a larger puzzle. Was Oswald intelligence? Yes, but he wasn't intelligence to the point where he was a super spy. His job was to go to the Soviet Union and do nothing. Literally, that was the gig. I don't think he went there to do super spy stuff. I think he went there to get the Russians spinning their gears, burning their resources, trying to figure out why the fuck this guy's here. That was it. And that's why that's how he could be adult and still be used as an intelligence operator. You know, that makes perfect sense to me. Hey, we're just going to get you trained. You speak Russian a little bit, and we're going to send you over to Russia. You're just going to live there and don't get into trouble. Right? That's all he had to do. Right? And then one day we'll call for you, come back home. And that was it. Didn't have to be a super spy to do any of that stuff. So the stories of him being a super spy in Atsugi with some Russian fucking lady and a Japanese prostitute, doesn't fit the character, doesn't fit who he was as a person, doesn't fit a larger scale operation he would have been in, doesn't make any sense to me, kind of tells me it's at least minimum exaggerated. Right? Do you follow? Let me continue. He stated that he also vaguely recalls that while at Atsugi, Japan, Oswald was speaking Russian, and he vaguely recalled that Oswald carried with him a dark blue or black book, which Powers believed to be a Russian language book. Okay, this is where things get weird. Because no one else says this about Oswald during his time in Atsugi. The first real statements we have of Oswald attempting to learn Russian is in March of 1959, after he already took the Russian test, which is weird, right? So the Oswald speaking Russian thing has got me weirded out, and I hope to figure it out when I get to Oswald in Russia for Volume 3, because I'm kind of the belief that either Oswald didn't speak Russian and they faked the whole thing, or he had a crash course in Russian, because when he went to Russia, he didn't speak Russian there. People who knew him there said he did not speak Russian. He spoke English. Explain that shit. Explain that shit. I don't get it. So, Powers also recalled that Oswald was believed to have received a court-martial for striking a non-commissioned officer. This possibly occurred in Biloxi, Mississippi. No, that occurred in Atsugi, and it was with Rodriguez, I think the guy's name was. Powers concluded by informing that Oswald was a loner. He stated that Oswald never expressed sympathy towards the Communist Party, communist principles, or Marxist doctrines. He was antagonist towards discipline, was not in complete sympathy with the spirit of the Marine Corps. So here's the weird thing, because we know Powers was dealing with the real Oswald, with the bullneck. He was at Biloxi, right? And then went to Atsugi. But then he says that he was carrying around a dark blue or black book. And this book actually exists. This is a book that was a Russian book that was found in Oswald's belongings. But it was believed that those books were picked up, in Soviet Union. I'll have to dig into that some more. I covered it vaguely, but I'll have to do some more digging. Powers concluded by informing that Oswald was a loner. Stated Oswald never expressed any sympathy towards the Communist Party. Yeah, so we don't even get any. Nobody in the Marines ever says he was a communist, which is weird because the Stanley, North Dakota communist stuff predates it, and some of the other stuff. Well, actually, not really, because you got Ed Vobel, who says that he knew Oswald that whole time, and he says that Oswald never talked about communism or none of that stuff, and he knew both Oswalds. So. Mr. Donald Peter Camarada, 601 Burlingame Avenue, Capitola, California, advised November 27, 1963 that he served in the Marine Corps with Lee Harvey Oswald. Camarada stated that he traveled with Oswald from Jacksonville, Florida to Keesler Air Force Base, Biloxi, Mississippi on May 3rd, 1957. Traveling with them were the following: Edward J. Bandoni, James Brereton, Daniel Powers, and Martin Schrand. The same group departed Biloxi, Mississippi to El Toro at Santa Ana, California, July 1st, 1957, en route to Japan. Oh, that's not true. They all went separate ways. So I don't know why I'd say that. About Christmas 1958, they returned to California and served with the Marine Air Control Squadron number 9, El Toro Helicopter Facility, Santa Ana, California. Camarada was discharged from the Marine Corps in September 1959, and Oswald left shortly before on a hardship discharge. Camarada stated that Oswald was rumored to have taken a Russian language course while in Japan, and on his return to the United States, he spoke in Russian, had his name in Russian on his jacket, and listened to Russian phonograph records. Oswald was described as a loner. Camarada related that Schrand was killed while serving on sentry duty with Oswald during maneuvers in the Philippine Islands. The death of Schrand was ruled accidental, but it was rumored Oswald may have been responsible. All right, so one thing to point out here, Camarada didn't know Oswald once he got back to Santa Ana. As far as I know. Camarada was... Okay, so here's where things get weird. I'm glad I just caught this. So, Camarada was one of the guys in the group in the beginning at Biloxi. He was with the real Oswald. He goes to Atsugi, and then they return, and here it says, about Christmas 1958, they returned to California and served with the Marine Air Control Squadron number 9, El Toro Helicopter Facility, Santa Ana, California. Camarada was discharged from the Marine Corps in September 1959, and Oswald left shortly before. So he did know Oswald. My mistake. So he was there with Oswald. But here's the problem. Here's the big problem. Is that Lee Oswald wasn't stationed at Santa Ana. Harvey Oswald was. So this is a different Oswald at this time that Camarada is throwing under the bus, right? Camarada worked in Santa Ana with Oswald up till September 59, but he worked with Lee Oswald at Biloxi. So what's going on here? Then when he talks about Oswald having been rumored to take a course, I don't know that he personally saw Oswald doing any of that stuff. See, all this stuff is stuff that he heard. He spoke in Russian and his name in Russian on his jacket and listened to Russian phonograph records. Did he see that firsthand, or was that relayed to him? Camarada stated Daniel Powers was stationed at Atsugi, Japan with Oswald, may have some information concerning Oswald's activities while in Japan. Powers' home is at Owatonna, Minnesota. He was discharged from the Marine Corps in 1958. The St. Paul Dispatch newspaper, published daily at St. Paul, Minnesota, November 25th, 1963, contained the following article captioned, Menominee Man Knew Lee Oswald in Marines. A former Marine buddy of Lee Harvey Oswald remembers the late suspect in President Kennedy's assassination as a youngster who felt he was being persecuted and was aggressive toward any kind of authority. Daniel Powers, football and wrestling coach at Menominee High School in Wisconsin, confirmed that the other acquaintances of Oswald had said that he was a loner. Powers recalled that Oswald was court-martialed twice during his military service. The 27-year-old Powers, who first met Oswald in March of 1957 in Florida, said Oswald was alone most of the time and outside of the group. I felt sorry for him, Powers said. He seemed aloof from the others, and the fellows his age in the squadron would tease him about his difference. I always got the impression he felt he was being persecuted by the Marine Corps. He was very aggressive towards any kind of authority. Powers, who knew Oswald for about a year in the Marines, recalled the dissident youngster being court-martialed for fighting with a non-commissioned officer. Despite his aloofness and rancor towards the Marines, Powers said he probably got as close to Oswald as anyone could to that type of person. I did kind of enjoy his company, Powers admitted. He seemed more intelligent than others his age. He seemed a little bit more mature. Powers said he often sat with Oswald for 3 or 4 hours playing chess when the group was sent to the Pacific Theater. All right. So here, now we have a letter to John Armstrong, that is. Wednesday, 1900 hours, November 15th, 1993. John, this will be sort of short. I'm really tired and fighting a bad cold that has almost put me on my butt. My work crew went back to work Tuesday after 6 weeks layoff. I'm really stiff and sore. Playing softball didn't help keep my muscles in shape at all. Work is work and play is play. Received your letter with regards to Sergeant Powers and the list for me to choose some tapes from. Christ, had no idea tapes were so expensive. I do appreciate the offer on the tapes, but do not want or expect you to order any tapes for me. Thought you may have one you didn't need or could just copy. Tapes is no big deal, and I'm just starting to get into music. I really like your new age music tapes. Play them a lot. Sergeant Powers, it would have been late 67 or sometime in 68. He was killed in Phoenix. It was Phoenix. I'm sorry, I said California, but it was Phoenix. I do not recall his parents' name or his first name. Do you recall parents lived on Hatcher Road, not far from the mortuary that buried him? Small house in Sunny Slope that sat back a ways from the street and had a fairly long drive. The mortuary that buried Powers is the Hanson Mortuary, 8314 North 7th Street in Phoenix, Arizona. The parents of this lad were very good friends of the owners of Hanson Mortuary. Death was ruled a suicide and is on file with the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office. I checked the file out years ago. Body was found at home in his house. Parents, gunshot to the right temple and gun in the left hand. Want to explain this as a calling card hit I am most familiar with and indicates termination with regard and great prejudice. To be honest, I didn't recall mortuary name and had to look it up at the library here. It's a damn shame. I buried my son Buster at the same library. Powers was buried in civilian clothes and his parents told his active duty was terminated. He didn't have anything coming. I also believe his service record has been pulled. A hint, if you find his parents, I do not think you want to mention my name or that I gave you the initial info. So interesting stuff about Daniel Patrick Powers, huh? All right, next one, January 9th, 58. Looks like a Marine document. From security officer to coordinating officer, MAGS-1. That's Marine Air Group Squadron 1, I believe. Statement of Lieutenant Commander Walbridge, USN. That's United States Navy. Security officer, U.S. Naval Air Station, QB Point, concerning the incident occurring 5th January of 1958 involving Schrand, Martin E. 163-9694, Private U.S. Marine Corps. This statement incorporates entries from the Naval Air Station QB Point Security Department log and opinions delivered from the investigation conducted by the security officer and the criminal investigator of the Naval Air Station at QB Point. 2. The incident was reported to the Naval Air Station Security Patrol Office at 1940 hours, 5 January 1958, by Mr. Edmund L. Carbonell, Crash Fire Captain, Naval Air Station QB Point Operations Department. The incident reported was the shooting of a Marine sentry on the west perimeter of the carrier aircraft parking area aboard the Naval Air Station QB Point. The identity of the victim was established as Schrand Martin T. 163-9694, Private U.S. Marine Corps, by his identification card removed from the body and by the corporal of the guard of MACS-1 on duty at the time of the occurrence of the incident. At 2005 hours, the victim was removed from the scene to the QB Ridge Naval Hospital via naval ambulance. The victim was pronounced dead on arrival by the medical officer of the day. The Naval Air Station security officer was notified at 1943 hours and, accompanied by the criminal investigator, Mr. Kenneth V. Davis, arrived at the scene of the shooting at 2016 hours. Photographs of the surrounding scene and a mock-up of the victim's body were made. The corporal of the guard was used to represent the victim since he was the first individual on scene. The corporal of the guard was used to represent the victim since he was the first individual on the scene. The Naval Air Station security officer and his criminal investigator conducted an on-site investigation to determine if another person or persons were involved in the incident. The initial inspection of the area was conducted during hours of darkness. Therefore, the area was placed under security guard and re-inspected the following morning after sunrise. The second investigation disclosed beyond doubt that no other person or persons were involved in the incident. This being the case, the Naval Air Station Security Office released all information, personal belongings of the victim and the weapon to the commanding officer, MACS-1, so that he might conduct his investigation. This delay was considered proper and necessary so as to absolve the Naval Air Station QB Point and the local authorities of any connection with the incident. Inspection of the weapon involved in the incident and the viewing of the body of the victim at the QB Ridge Naval Hospital prompts the security officer to make the following statement of opinion. The weapon involved was in good and satisfactory operating condition. One round of ammunition was located in the chamber of the gun and was in the battery position. The trigger guard safety device was not on safe. Oh, so not only was there a round in the chamber, the safety was off. B, discharge of the weapon took place within 8 inches of the left armpit. C, the trajectory of the charge from underneath the left armpit, the path through the body of the shrapnel and the exit of the shrapnel at the top of the shoulder blade leads the investigator to believe that suicide was not committed by the victim. This reasoning is offered by some of these factors. The length of the barrel of the weapon from its point to the trigger guard was 27 1/2 inches. The man's arm measurement from armpit to the heel of either arm was 22 3/4 inches. The man had heavy field shoes on. Under the above conditions, to have fired the weapon and caused the charge to enter and leave the body, it would have been necessary to use a foreign object to discharge the weapon. No such object was found in the area. Pathologically, suicide victims will either discharge the weapon in the head through the mouth or in the heart. No such vital position was penetrated. Nothing in the man's personal property on his body at the time of the incident indicated that he might be in a depressed frame of mind. The man had on his person $28.35. Statements of the victim's friends indicated that the victim was not prone to exercise his weapon as a drill piece. Okay. So we covered this on the last one, right? So the interview of Walbridge. Here it says, statements of the victim's friends indicated to the investigator that the victim was not prone to exercise his weapon as a drill piece. He recanted that statement later on, and when he testified and said, no, that was wrong. He was prone to exercise it. See, this is how he got coached after the fact because his fuck was murdered. It is felt that this accident may have been caused by using the riot gun to conduct manual of arms evolutions, and in doing so, the gun was accidentally discharged, causing the victim's death. Yeah, but that doesn't explain why there was a shotgun shell in the gun. That doesn't explain why I just lost my train of thought. You know what I'm saying, though. It doesn't explain any of the shit we just talked about. Why the safety was off and why there was a fucking shotgun shell in the gun at all. Those two things, like, doesn't make any sense. And there's no mention of the carrying of a .45. No further investigation is anticipated by the security department, but its services and facilities will be made available at your request. Marine Air Control Squadron 1, Commanding Officer First Lieutenant James B. Miller. Subject, investigation to inquire into the circumstances surrounding the death of Private Martin D. Schrand. 1900 hours, chapters. All right, so we got about 15 pages left to go on this document. So I'm going to call it here for today, and it should be able to wrap up nice and neatly on the next episode. But I encourage you all to go out and investigate the death of Martin Schrand on your own. You will likely come to the exact same conclusions that I did, that him and his brother were murdered because they found out about the two Oswald scheme. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. I'll be back on probably Thursday, and I'll see you then.